I want to thank you all for being here. I'm so excited to talk about this, and this is something I sort of feel like it's been a long journey for me. You guys are going to hear some of that tonight. So for those of you who don't know me, and I know quite a few of you do, I've been in my course, my animal and communication course, or learn animal communication course, but for those of you who don't know me, I'm going to introduce myself first, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story on how it is I came to be here tonight doing this. And then we're going to do some readings for those of you who want to hear some readings. And we'll take it from there. We'll do a lot of questions and answers, and we're going to talk about animals in the afterlife a little bit too, okay? So my name is Lori Spagna. My organization is called Ethel's God. It spells dog's life backwards. And the reason I named it that was because many, many years ago, I was traveling around the world internationally to countries all over the planet, and I was working as a volunteer with different animals, orangutans, bats, elephants, whales, dolphins, sea lions, seals, in lots of different capacities, in lots of different countries. And I was learning as a volunteer for these organizations, I was observing and noticing how much the animals in the different communities were emulating the communities that they lived in. And this became one of my most amazing, I was so entranced with that, oh my God, the animals in Maui were displaying one kind of behavior, and the same kind of animals in Los Angeles were displaying a totally different kind of behavior, and then the same kind of animals in New York were displaying a different kind of behavior. And then I started to really focus in, I started to see more and more and more how these animals were emulating even their immediate homes and their communities and their states and their countries, and it just became this passion of mine to start making connections of the dots of how all the things were connected. And that's really where it all started, and I always loved animals. So anyway, but that's how I named my business Ethel's God, because it's just a mere reflection of dog's life in reverse, that they're just mirroring us in our world. And so to give you a little background on me, I'm a professional intuitive, which most people call that a psychic, but psychic has kind of developed a bad name, or just because, yeah, sure, there's lots of phonies out there, but also because in a lot of ways we've just really been slanted on that word, and quite deliberately, in fact, in my opinion, because what's happened really is just that there's a lot of people who would like us not to know the power within us that we have access to when we learn how to tap into it. So anyway, I'm a professional intuitive, I'm a professional animal communicator, and I work with a whole lot of energy, which energy is in everything, in everyone. It's all pervasive. There's nowhere that energy is not, and there's no space between you and I, actually, because it's just energy, whether we can see it or not. And so this energy, when we start to work with it, it's so powerful. We can tap into this field of energy consciously and deliberately, and we can use it for healing ourselves, for healing others, and for actually healing our world and our reality, the existence that we live in. And so while that might seem kind of strange to a lot of people, in point of fact, it's actually scientifically valid. So even Einstein told us E equals mc squared, right? Energy is matter in perpetual motion. That's effectively what that means. So, okay. So anyway, using a lot of the practices that I'm certified in, that I use this energy, some of them just to let you know, if you've heard of them, I'm a certified theta healer, DNA theta healer. I'm an Akashic Records practitioner. My Akashic Records teacher is in the room, Barbara Schiffman. She's so amazing. I do Reiki, which is an energy kind of healing, for a lot of you who know what that is. And EFT, which is kind of a tapping technique, which was really developed by Dr. Gary Craig, or made famous by Dr. Gary Craig. It's a tapping technique very similar to acupressure and acupuncture. And I do a whole lot of other healing techniques and modalities that are largely taught to me just through my own direct connection with Source, Creator. So, okay. So with that then, what happened with me was 15 years ago, I rescued this dog, Kenya. I'll send her picture in. You guys can take a look at her. And I rescued her from South Central LA. And when I rescued her, I went there with the direct intention of saving an animal's life. And actually, I think it was maybe a little over 15 years now, maybe. And so when I rescued her, I actually got her from, the pound and brought her home. And within 2 days, I brought her to the vet, like the next day or a day later. And the vet did all the blood tests and, gave her a checkup. And they said, your dog has parvo. And you should, bring her back and get another one. So for those, does everybody know what parvo is in the room? Okay, parvo is, it's a blood virus similar to AIDS in humans. And generally speaking, and certainly 15 years ago, what the doctors at that time were saying was it's basically incurable. There's certainly no guarantees and you should just euthanize this dog. And that was really all the vet said to me. Bring her back and get a new one. Which I thought was absolutely insane. Because that was like the dog I committed to. I'm not going to just bring her back and get a new one, So, well, the vet was using his sort of, intellectual logic on this and just saying, well, I mean, you're going to spend $5,000 on this dog, or something like that, at that time, and there's no guarantee, why don't you just let her be euthanized? And I was like, that's not okay with me. I was at that time really attached to her physical body and life and being of service to animals. And that was really my mantra. That became my mantra after that. Like, how do I be of service to animals on a global scale? How do I make a difference to animals on a global scale? And so, anyway, a week later and several $1,000s later, Kenya came home to me, and she became my lifelong trusted guide and teacher and companion and healer. And to this day, she's still teaching me, even though she no longer has a physical body. So that's how I kind of ended up here, but there's a much longer story to it than that. What happened really was that I spent my life in corporate America, my professional life, and actually at the age of 7, I remember going to Shamu, SeaWorld, and walking out of that SeaWorld show saying, I want to spend my life working with animals, training animals, being of service to animals. And I remember holding my dad's hand saying this, and he said, well, you can't do that because you won't make any money at it. So that became like a lifelong torment for me because of course I went to corporate America and became this marketer, and I was rising up the corporate ladder quite well, making 6 figures in corporate America as a marketing director, and really I felt like I was enslaved to that system. I was really enslaved. I was deeply in debt. I was highly psychic and really didn't really know it. I was taking on other people's energy, their thoughts, their emotions. I thought they were mine. I didn't know. And so I was like 65 pounds overweight at one point. I was smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. I was drinking 6 to 8 beers a day. And I was drinking 2 pots of coffee a day. And I was deeply in debt. And I was really ready to die. But I would sit at my office every night at 11 o'clock at night. Hi, come on in.
Thank you.
And I would pretty much be crying, like, how am I going to get out of this? I'm so enslaved to the system. I just felt like a slave. I was a good slave. And I would say, how do I be of service to animals on a global scale? How do I be of service to animals on a global scale? And that became kind of my mantra, And the thing was, I didn't really know what I was asking. I just thought I was going to be like a great dog trainer. And anyway, I guess the universe responded. And so what happened was, I also was on a very spiritual path of my own, and I used to say, I want God to be my boss. I want God to be my boss. I didn't like this enslavement system. And so what happened was, about 7 years ago, my brother died. And when he died, it was an unexpected accidental drug overdose, although I knew the last time I saw him, I remember driving away from his house in Florida with my then husband in the car, saying, that's the last time I'm ever going to see my brother alive. And I knew it. And within a year, he had died. And the thing that was weird about that was when he died, I started hearing him in my head. And I started seeing him and seeing places. Come on in. Hello. Welcome. And strange things started happening. Like the book that he gave me in Key West that we bought together suddenly was poking out of the bookshelf one night. And the CD that we used to listen to, it was a song by a band called No Doubt, one day was on the floor of the living room. And there were times where, I remember his girlfriend at the time, her name was Alexis. And one time I just remember saying, like, if this is real, just show me the name Alexis. And I was going to the airport one day, and I remember looking on a sign, and I was just reading the sign, and it said the name Alexis. And then the big thing was, I remember at one point, his dog's name was Herkimer. And I knew, if I could see the name Herkimer, there's no way that would be shown to me, right? And I'm walking down the street, and I hear in my head, and it sounds like my brother's voice, look up, look up, look up. And I'm like, huh? So I look up, and there in front of me is a sign that says, Herkimer Diamonds. And I even remember once in Maui asking, show me Herkimer, show me are you still with me, Jeff? Show me a Herkimer diamond. And I'm walking, in Maui. I don't even look in diamond stores in Maui. Like, I was poor. I had no money. I was picking up 8 pennies off the ground in Maui. Like, thank you, God, for the 8 pennies, And I look up, and I'm looking in this diamond store, and I'm asking, like, why am I looking in this diamond store? And there's this jewelry store, and there's this sign, like, Herkimer Diamond. So anyway, okay. So my brother, now I know, was his divine appointment was to wake me up so that I could come forward and wake up to the truth of who I really am and who we all are in this room and what's really going on right now on the planet, which is this massive shift of consciousness, an evolutionary shift. So anyhow, so I went to Maui because my husband, when I started going through this waking up, my husband at that time was like, whoa, I am not into dead people or being alive. I'm not into this. I didn't marry into psychic stuff. I don't believe it. I don't want to know anything about it. And I was freaking out, I was like, okay, I've got my dead brother in my ear. Like, I don't know what to do about this. I mean, I didn't set up for this either, I didn't think, right? So anyway, my husband basically divorced me, and I went off to Maui and lived there for 2 years. And that's where I got certified in a lot of these alternative healing practices that we're talking about. And I started practicing animal communication every day, everywhere I could, with every animal I could. Spiders, guinea pigs, rabbits, pigs, horses, goats, I mean, you name it. I was working with them. And snakes, iguanas, the whole thing. So that's really where my skill set got really, really good. And at the same time, I was still doing dog training, which was what I had started doing. I'm telling the story a little bit out of order, but I started doing dog training, and I was trained by a gentleman who spent 20 years training government service dogs. And I was recruited by him. 1,000 people applied to work for him and with him, and 6 were accepted. And so we were trained in a very, very rigorous training program. And only 4, after the first 4 weeks, 2 of them were gone. And I worked under his tutelage for almost a year. And it was a very aggressive program, and I really dove into it. But ultimately, when I moved to Maui, I started training other trainers and working with other professionals, and then moving more into these metaphysical, spiritual kinds of programs. So after 2 years, I came back here. And now what I call myself, some of you will know this word and some of you may not, is I call myself a light worker, really. Because I just see myself as someone here to help this planet wake up. Because we've been in the dark for a long time. It's just not normal to kill other people. It's just not normal to steal from poor people and give to the rich and then lie to them through controlled media sources. It's just not normal. And once we start to realize that what normal is just love and kindness and compassion and forgiveness and connecting to that source within us that exists within us, we all get to wake up out of the slumber that we've been in. So back to Kenya, she was the one who taught me. And when I was really practicing the animal communication and all of these incredible gifts, she used to ask me things. I used to always hear her. The first question would be, Kenya, do this? Kenya? Kenya? And I never really knew that was why, I named her that. I just, but she was my teacher. She would ask me Kenya everything. So the thing about Kenya was she ended up living with me in her physical body for about 12 years. And in Maui, what happened was I was undergoing this radical shift. I don't smoke anymore. I don't drink at all anymore. I don't drink coffee anymore. I don't even eat anything that I can't pronounce. I don't usually eat things very much from a box or a can or a bottle. I mean, well, a bottle, juice, but water. But what I'm saying is if it's not from Earth, I pretty much don't eat it. And so Kenya taught me all these things, but during that transformation, it was not easy. Like Earth is going through a transformation right now. We're rebirthing ourselves, which is why we're seeing a lot of these things happen, right? So effectively, Kenya took on a lot of my pain. She took on my pain from the divorce. She took on my pain from the death of my brother. She took on my pain and grief from feeling unacknowledged and ignored in my family. She took on my pain and grief from the troubles in Maui, and really it was not an easy time for me at all. It was so hard. And she certainly watched me go through many of my own transitions where I was definitely having a very real experience where I was physically and completely and totally leaving my body as if my body was dead, and I still retained my consciousness. But this body was just not even alive. So she really helped me to learn about how to do this and to embrace the stillness and go to that place where it really does exist for all of us, And when Kenya took on all of that grief and pain from me, and she finally left her body, we were in Maui, and it was, I was working with a lot of alternative healers, and we were doing a lot of energy work for her, and of course I wanted her to stay. I didn't want to let her go. Nobody ever does, right? I'm assuming everybody in here has dealt with, on some level, the loss, the grief of the separation of an animal, yeah? Has everybody? Yeah? And so, when I say animal, I even mean the human variety. Because even science tells us we're animals too, right? So, when she left, I was with her in the room. And I'm going to tell you a lot more about that.